Well, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Mastery Show, where we showcase 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and subject experts, who share their breakthroughs, challenges, and successes so that you can emulate these success strategies and grow your business just as they have. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to have with us Noah St. John as my guest speaker. He's also known as the Power Habits Mentor, and all this will become clear to you in a moment, but he is a communications expert, a keynote speaker, and a best-selling author of 12 books, no less, including his most recent called Get Rid of Your Head Trash, which I love as a title, and is famous for inventing AFFORMATIONs, which he will explain in a moment, as well as helping busy people achieve financial freedom, and we all want that. He is the only author in history to have works published by the Hay House, HarperCollins, Mind Valley, Nightingale Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher, which I'm sure you'll agree is quite an achievement. And he also appears frequently in the news, including places like Forbes, NBC, CBS, Fox, and the Huffington Post, to name a few. Those familiar with my show and my coaching programs will be aware that there are 3 key pillars that I advocate for business success and financial freedom. Firstly, having the right systems and processes in place so that you're able to concentrate all your energies on revenue generating activities, which is the most important thing in our business. Secondly, the right mindset for success. And thirdly, taking very specific and determined action on a daily basis. Now, the reason I'm delighted that Noah is with us is that his affirmations and his new book, Get Rid of Your Head Trash, specifically aligns to the second pillar, which addresses mindset issues, which are absolutely key to your business success. And you will hear this over and over again, not only from myself, but all the guests who appear on this show, no matter where they are in their journey, starting off at 6, 7, or indeed at 8 figures, all maintain that having the right mindset is absolutely paramount to their success. So really, really delighted to have Noah with us today. Noah, a very warm welcome to the show. Delighted that you can be with us.
Thank you, Haru. Great to be here with you and great to have everybody here with us.
Well, we're going to love this, I'm sure of it. So before we get going, and you are going to explain to us your definition of affirmations, how you came about it, and a head thrash, etc. Why don't we kick off, as we always do, by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your earliest memory of what you wanted to become when you grew up. Did you always have, for instance, an entrepreneurial flair? How did you get started?
Well, I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which just happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor, and I mean that literally. We lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure. And so from the time that I was very young, I had the very painful experience of seeing the difference, the chasm, the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everybody else in the community. The have-nots was my family. And so from a very young age, I was painfully aware of the fact that why is it that my parents worked really hard, because they worked hard, they struggled, they sacrificed, but they could just never get ahead. Meanwhile, there's people right across the street, literally, in my hometown, that had lots of money, lots of wealth, success, cars, houses, and they didn't seem to work so hard, and they weren't struggling, and they weren't arguing and all the time and all that stuff. I'm going, this doesn't make any sense. So I didn't have anyone to talk to. There's certainly no one in my family could help me. So I'm a nerd and I'm a bookworm, and I just went to the library and, kind of like the books behind you there, Ru. I just went to the library and, started reading books on personal growth, spiritual growth, just the classics, Stephen Covey, Wayne Dyer, Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, all the classics. And I just really, really tried to apply these things from these great classic books. And, fast forward many years later, I was 30 years old. I was a college student for the second time. I was a 30-year-old college student. I was a religious studies major. By that time, I was divorced. I had maybe $800 to my name. I was living in this tiny little dorm room that was so small, if you stood in the middle of the room and put your arms out to both sides, you could touch the walls on both sides. That's how tiny this room was.
I know those.
Yeah, and all of my worldly possessions in this tiny little room. And I'm going, what is wrong with this picture here? I'm reading all these books. I'm doing everything they told me. And my life is a mess. I'm a total failure. And it was very frustrating. But it's like that old phrase, when life hands you a lemon, you got to find a way to make lemonade. And it just so happens that at that point in my life, I had these two amazing discoveries that really led to all of the work that I've been doing in the 20 years since. And as you mentioned, now I am the only author in history that has works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Mind Valley, Nightingale, Conan, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul Publisher. I'm the only person that's ever done that. And so, I share that story, hopefully to, inspire and encourage people to know that even if you're in, a really bad situation where you feel your back's up against the wall, just look around and hopefully find that kernel of truth or of something that can get you out of it. And, I'm fortunate that that's what happened for me. So
I'm tempted to say from one book nerd to another. Can't help it with all the books. Yes. I completely agree. So you're at a stage, you're 30, you're really struggling. And what I don't want to lose in what you've just said is that there are many people out there who want to better themselves and who are grasping at books, programs, coaching, you name it. But few make the translation from the knowledge into application. So what was your trigger?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. So I was reading all those books. I remember it was April 1997. I'll just take you back there. And I was sitting there in my little tiny room, and like I said, I was divorced. I had no money. I had a few friends, and it was just sitting there. And I'm looking around my little room, and all of a sudden I see all these little piece of paper that I'd written all these statements on. I am happy. I am rich. I'm successful. Now, why had I done that? Well, because every book tells you to do that. Right?
Yep.
Every book in self-help says, hey, you got to write these affirmations, write these positive statements, and make them in the present, blah, blah, blah. We've heard this a million times, right? So, of course, I did it. I'm a good nerd, so I did that, followed directions, and nothing. It was so frustrating. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I wasn't successful. I was broke. I wasn't rich. I had no money. I'm going, what the heck? This is insane. So it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
So, I went to bed that night and got up even more frustrated. I got in the shower just like any other morning. Now, in my book of affirmations, I call it the shower that changed everything. All right. Because this is what happened, and of course, I'm sure we've all had those ideas in the shower, right? Those aha moments you're in the shower and, oh, yes, and why it happens in the shower, I don't know exactly. But my point is that, you got to pay attention to those. I always tell my clients, pay attention to those aha moments, because you never know, you could change your life too. So for me, what happened was I was in the shower thinking about all these thoughts rattling around in my head, like I was just sharing with you. How come I've been saying all these statements, doing everything they told me, and it's not working? There's got to be something missing. There's got to be something they're not telling us. There's got to be a better way. What could it be? What could it possibly be? So I'm racking my brain and I'm thinking about, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is beliefs. Right? Because if you want to change your life, you've got to change your belief. I knew that was true. So I said, well, what is a belief? Well, a belief is a thought. Okay, what is thought? Then the more I thought about that question, what is human thought? The more I realized that human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions. For example, if I ask you, why is the sky blue? You know what happens in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right?
Yeah.
So I said, now, wait a minute. Notice you can't help doing that. It automatically does it. And I said, well, if the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements that we don't believe? Right? So I like to do this at my live events, at my seminars. I have people stand up. I say, okay, everybody, we're going to say this statement. Ready? I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. And you know what they do? Then they start laughing. They crack up. They start laughing. I'm going, what are you laughing at? They go, well, I'm not rich. I said, but you just said it. Yeah, but I don't believe it.
Yeah.
See, so there's nothing wrong with the statement. The problem is we don't believe the statement. Now, what the traditional teachers told us, right? We've been taught this for decades. They said, well, if you don't believe your statement, just say it 1,000 million billion cajillion times until you believe it. And hey, for some people that worked just fine, but for millions of us, it didn't work at all. So I said, well, wait a second, there's gotta be a better way. What is it? So I said, wait a second, the human mind is automatically using questions. So I said, well, if the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? And I said, well, I don't know. What would that look like? Well, let's see. You got this statement. So classic affirmation, I am rich, right? It's a classic one. I am rich. And your brain says, yeah, right. In my book, I call it the yeah, right response, because your brain literally says, yeah, right. Right? And so what they're basically saying is bash your brain into submission. That's what they're really saying, right? If you think about it. And hey, like I said, for some people it works just fine. For millions, it doesn't work at all. So in fact, it makes us more frustrated. That's why I share my story, because so many people come up to me in my seminars and go, oh my God, no, that's exactly what I was going through. I'm like, I know. So I said, well, so if that's the statement that we don't believe, what would the question be? And I thought for a second, and then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what immediately starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right? Now, we all know about the law of sowing and reaping, right? This has been taught for centuries. It's nothing new. It's been taught, since the beginning of time. As you sow, so shall you reap. But what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. But what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Why am I so broke? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get more clients? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? Right? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get?
Lousy answers.
Exactly. And that means a lousy life. So I said, wait a second. What if instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers and create a lousy life, what if we just flip the whole thing 180 degrees? Let's flip the whole thing on its head and start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life. And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name, and the name that I gave it was the name of my book, which is now from Hay House. It's the 4th edition of this book. It's called the AFFORMATIONS, AFFORMATIONS.
Affirmations.
Not affirmations, but
affirmations. Yes, the distinct difference between affirmations and afformations, which is the positive thought sowing process that you're giving.
It's really yes, it is, but it's the process of asking empowering questions as opposed to saying positive statements. Now, notice I'm not saying the statements are wrong.
No.
I am saying that because of the brain's embedded presupposition factor, your brain automatically searches for answers to questions. So what you're really doing is you're doing an end run around the yeah, right response. You see? Because when you say a statement, your brain basically says, yeah, right. It doesn't believe you many times. But when you ask a question, you never hit the yeah, right response. You do an end run, and by virtue of the law of sowing and reaping, it instantly triggers that law, and you instantly and forever get the result. And that's why when you go to our website, when you go to noahstjohn.com, what I encourage people to do is click on there's a page that says praise. What that means is just success stories. And we have dozens and dozens and dozens. I mean, we've got thousands, but just on the website, we've got dozens and dozens of real stories from real people who've used not just my affirmations, but also my power habits training and my 6-figure business machine training to not just double their income, but triple, quadruple, quintuple their income. I mean, we're talking just incredible breakthroughs in their business. They've gone from 0 to 6 figures. They've created 6, 7, and yes, even 8-figure increases in their business, but not just business, not just money. Also, we've had people lose weight. We've had people overcome addiction, quit smoking. We've had kids get better grades. I mean, it just is incredible once you learn how to use these affirmations and apply them to every area of your life.
Because this is the switch to believing, because you are now believing the positive statements that your brain is receiving, and therefore the positive responses that the brain is giving. Excellent.
Empowering questions. We call them empowering questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Positive and empowering questions. Absolutely. So now let's move on to, does that lead us to the head thrush issue? I think it quite neatly leads us into the head thrash. Why don't you explain what you mean by head thrash, and why did you create the whole concept of getting rid of your head thrash?
Okay, so
isn't that obvious? I mean, that's
absolutely. People ask me about this all the time, and I'm basically known for a few things out there. One is AFFORMATIONS, one is head trash. I had one woman write me on Facebook, and they said, if I ever see anybody talking about head trash, I know it came from Noah St. John. So I was like, awesome. I appreciate that.
That's good branding.
I've been teaching this for 20 years now. But the point is that I started thinking about this, and I thought about how I was raised, right? Mm-hmm. And then, this isn't to throw my parents under the bus, but just, I was raised in this environment of poverty and fear and lack and not enough. Nothing I did was good enough. We never had enough. All I heard every day from, my parents is, we don't have enough money, we can't afford it, blah, 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 blah. So what I realize is over time, that builds up what I call head trash, okay? Wow. Meaning that guy in your head that says, I can't do it because, ... See? Yeah. And what happens is, for all of us, you just fill in the blank. Yes. I can't do it because ... So what's your, this is what I say to my clients. I say, what's your ... Is it I can't do it because I'm too old? I can't do it because I've made too many mistakes. Mm-hmm. I can't do it because I don't have the money. Yeah. I can't do it because I don't have the time. I don't have the connections. I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to trust.
I'm not an extrovert.
Right, exactly.
There's so many.
But here's the key. We always make ourselves right. Mm. This is the key. We always make ourselves right. If you're saying, well, Noah, I can't do it because I'm too old, guess what? You're going to make yourself right. And you're going to find all the reasons why I can't do it because I'm too old. Because you're not going to make yourself wrong, right? We're literally never going to make ourselves wrong. So I could tell you all the stories about Colonel Sanders, who had started his business at 65, and all these amazing stories, people who started late in life or made tons of mistakes, made millions of dollars, lost millions of dollars, and made it back again. I mean, but you're not even going to hear that because your trash is in the way, and you're going to make yourself right. So think about your house, right? Imagine that, in your house, we just live and where there's trash, right? I mean, you can't not develop or create trash just by living. You're eating, you're whatever, right? So imagine, just as an imagination, imagine you just didn't take your trash out for a week. All right, it's okay. It's getting a little messy in there, but it's livable. How about you didn't take your trash out for a month? How about 3 months, 6 months, a year, 10 years, 20 years? You haven't taken your trash out in 20 years. Imagine that. What would your house look like? It'd be pretty gross, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Pretty awful to live in. Well, guess what? We're hanging around with our head trash in our heads for 20, 30, 40 years. I had one guy in one of my seminars, he literally stood up in front of the whole group and he said, Noah, I've been studying personal growth for 40 years. I've got a PhD, I've got a master's in psychology, and you taught us more in 3 days than I learned in 40 years of study. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to take credit for that, or I'm not trying to make myself sound bigger than him. I mean, that we have that guy on video saying that to a whole group of people. My point is that imagine if you didn't take your trash out of your home. Well, we've got to take the trash out of your head so that you can start to do the things that you are so capable of. But as long as you're saying to yourself, I can't do it because, you're always going to make yourself right. And that's what is holding so many people back.
So it's actually recognizing what it is by filling in the blanks, as you say, and then tackling that head on by accepting it and clearing out that trash. Great point.
That's what, our programs are literally designed to help people take out their head trash. And as a result of taking out their head trash, that's why we've had people double, triple, quadruple their income, go from 0 to 6 figures. Just really quick, I'll tell you a quick story. We had one student. Her name is Susan. She's from California, and she heard me on one of these programs. Yeah. It was a radio program, and she just said, Noah, oh my God, I just so identified with your story. It sounded so much like me. Well, it turned out that she had spent $60,000 on every personal growth program out there. She'd spent money on all the big names, all the famous dudes, all the gurus out there. She was $60,000 in debt. Wow. She was about to lose her home. She was about to lose her marriage. Her husband said, I can't take it anymore. You're buying all this stuff. We're supposed to be getting better. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. And so he was about to leave her. She was about to declare bankruptcy. I mean, it was the end of her rope. And she heard me speak, and she just a light bulb went on. And she said, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. Long story short, she went online, got all of my programs, got my AFFORMATION system, Power Habits Academy, and she started using my programs long story short, in less than a year, actually it was less than 6 months, she went from $60,000 in debt to landing her dream job at a 6-figure income. She's now a television producer at a national TV show. She's been nominated for an Emmy twice, and she's just published her first book. All of that happened because she followed the steps to get rid of her head trash and to take action even when she was in the face of fear.
So that's a very good example of someone in the business world who is collecting, what I call collecting programs, information. I mean, I'm all for self-development. I constantly tell people, you know, that your business and you are interlinked, and you develop yourself, and in doing so, you're developing your business. There's no two ways about it. We all get that, you know, all of us. So I'm all for that, but it's about, as you say, just collecting isn't adequate, because there are lots and lots of people who are spending an enormous amount of time collecting information, whether it's through books, videos, libraries, you know, programs, whatever it is. But it's, as you say, they're going to fall on deaf ears in some ways, or the deaf head, in your case, the head thrash. If they can't, then shift that mass that's getting in the way of them. Excellent example. So let's get back to you for a moment, and then we'll switch back to the affirmations.
Okay.
You have been very candid in telling us about some of your difficulties growing up, etc., and even later in your 30s when you hit that wall of the marriage breakdown, etc. But what have been your specific challenges in terms of your business journey? You've been in business now effectively about 20 years, you said. Yeah. What have been the real stumbling blocks and the real challenges that you've faced, and how have you overcome these anxieties?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look at 3 big mistakes that entrepreneurs make that are really keeping them stuck. Okay. The first is your head trash, which we've already talked about. So having those unconscious beliefs, those unconscious money blocks. And I mean, this is a huge thing that I work with clients on all the time, because money is a very emotional issue, and it's a very unspoken about issue. And so one of the things that we do with our clients is we're here to raise the elevation and raise the consciousness around money, because money acts as a magnifying glass. It doesn't change anything. It reveals everything. And so how you act with money is how you act with everything. And
so give an example of that for people who do. I know you, and I've read this and I've heard it, so I know what you mean. But in case people listening are not sure what you mean by money magnifies the problem, do you want to give an example around business?
Well, it's very simple. Let's say you're a person who has no money, right? You're broke. Right now, are you a broke person who's nice, or are you a broke person who's a jerk? Right. So I know, you know, everybody says, oh, it's more spiritual to be broke. No, there's broke jerks and broke nice people. So money is totally irrelevant in being a jerk or a nice person. So the point is, let's say you take that poor person and then they get lots of money. Now, if they're a broke, nice person, they're just going to be nicer. When you have lots of money, you get the ability to contribute to more causes, or to, you know, give to more people, or, you know, just have a bigger legacy and a bigger impact in the world. But if you're a person who's a jerk who doesn't have money, and then you get lots of money, you just get to be jerkier, right? So you're gonna lord that money over people. You're gonna, you know, do all the jerky things that rich jerks do. You see. And so the money is irrelevant. It just magnifies whatever's already there. So that's what I mean when I say money doesn't change anything. It reveals everything.
And particularly your personality, from what you're saying.
Exactly.
And your behaviors. Well,
look, I mean, it just also goes back to that thing of, you know, how many instant millionaires do you see who then are broke 3 years later? I mean, there's a big thing about athletes nowadays, for example, who, you know, they're 20, 21, 22 years old. They're these young kids, and suddenly they're multimillionaires. Yeah. But they were never given the steps to actually be or have that conversation around money. And so, you know, a lot of them, you know, they say that's when the cockroaches come out. You know, it's like turning the lights on. Wow, I have 7,000 cousins that I didn't know about. You know, I mean, it's that whole thing. And, you know, they want to give and they're nice. So that can, of course, go the wrong way, too. And people have definitely been taken advantage of. So that's one thing that we also are helping out with, too, is helping people have the tough conversations. Sometimes it's hard to say no. also to people, even when you want to help them. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Absolutely.
That's one of the big mistakes. Now, a second big mistake that I see people making, and that has really hurt me too, is not having a mentor. So I started my business in my college dorm room in 1997. I shared that story of how I discovered AFFORMATIONS. And so I started that company just because I knew I had an idea, a concept, a method, a technology that could literally change millions of lives, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know anything about running a business. I was a religious studies major in college. And so I didn't know about accounting or sales or marketing or online, nothing. I had no idea. I just had a huge burning desire to make a difference and to make an impact on the world. So I just stumbled along and, made tons of mistakes. And then 10 years later, I found myself $40,000 in debt working out of my parents' basement because I listened to a lot of the wrong people. I took a lot of bad advice and I didn't listen to myself.
Yeah.
And so I've made that mistake. But at that time was when I hired my first real mentor, the person who showed me how to take what was in my head and package it up, sell it online. I made $12,000 from my very first online program. And, since then I've made, we're now a multi-million-dollar operation. And we've helped our clients make over $100 million, 6 and 7 and even 8-figure increases. So having that mentor is a crucial thing.
How could I disagree with you? But let's just give people a sense of the timeline that we're talking about. How long between the shower incident and the light bulb moment to losing 40,000?
Well, that was 10 years. So it was 1997 to 2007. It was 10 years. And so
then just in a matter of how many months before you sold your first product at 12K?
Oh, well, when I started working with my mentor, that was less than 60 days because I was ready to go and I needed a blueprint. See, that's what no one had ever given me. So now that's what I'm able to give to my clients is that blueprint, that framework. And, as you talked about your 3 pillars, we have our framework for helping people, number one, with their, getting rid of their head trash, what we call the inner game. And then the outer game of building your website, your marketing, having your launches, your sales funnels, all those things, you have to have both. You have to have them both working together. Otherwise, you're going to be imbalanced one way or the other. So, luckily, I was able to build that up really, really fast once I had someone showing me what I was supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Some guidance.
Someone who knew what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone who knew and had experience, and then you were able to follow that.
And then now I'm able to pass that on to our clients. So that's the nice thing.
Great stuff. So there are lots of things that you're sharing about, where it's gone wrong and how you've been able to turn those things around. But when did you, apart from your mentor, when do you believe you really started to make a significant impact in your business? When do you believe that? Well,
it really started for me let me put it this way, between 1997 and 2007, I had one book, my book, Permission to Succeed, from the Chicken Soup to the Soul Publisher. So from 2008 till today, that's when I have the Hay House, the HarperCollins, the Mind Valley, the Nightingale Conant, and many, many other programs, all of my own online programs. So when you go to noahstjohn.com, you can just see, and people go, how'd you build all these programs? I'm like, I just think in products. I think in programs. I think in sales funnels. So, a lot of entrepreneurs are really stuck. And that brings me to the third mistake that I wanted to talk about, which is having an information overload without giving yourself permission to succeed. See, when you have information overload, so my contention is this: we don't live in the information age. We live in the information overload age. We passed the information age about 20 miles back. So we are far, far into overload. Everybody's on overload. And when you're on overload, what tends to happen is that you procrastinate and you don't take action because you're like, oh, I should do this. No, I better do this. No, I should do this. Oh, and it's the shiny object syndrome, and it will never end. It will never end, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. We can never go back. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. Okay, Pandora's box has been opened, and it ain't going to get closed again. So as entrepreneurs, I feel let me say it this way. One of the biggest things we help people with is focus. That just to focus, and what that means is you've got to create a stop doing list. Just as much as, we all have our, mile-long to-do list every day, right? And it's just overload. I argue you need a stop doing list. I need to stop doing this. I need to stop doing this. I need to stop doing this. And you got to have things that you stop doing and that you delegate, for example. I mean, some things you can just remove and don't even do them, and nobody does them because you're just, driving yourself crazy for no reason. Just as a quick example, when I had my contracts from Hay House and Nightingale Conant, those are two dreams that I had for many years. I mean, I grew up as a nerd. I told you I wanted to be a Hay House author and I wanted to be a Nightingale Conant author. Well, it just so happens that I signed both of those contracts like the same within a 60-day period. These two dreams I had for years and years. I was so excited, danced around. And then after the excitement wore off, I looked at the contract. I said to my wife, I got to write 2 books in 90 days. I looked at the dates. I'm like, whoops, I forgot to read the fine print. And I went, oh my God. But luckily, I'd been doing this work a long time, and I knew what to do. I knew what my books were going to be about anyway. So I said, honey, I'm not going to see you for a little while here. I basically locked myself.
I'll just lock myself away for 3 months.
I wrote 2 books in 90 days. So people are sitting there going, oh, well, I would like to write a book. How long have you been thinking about it? Around about 10, 15 years. Okay, well, you're not writing a book. Writing a book doesn't take you 10 to 15 years, unless you're doing a 10 to 15 year chronicle of some biography or something. But there's no way that it takes you that long. That means you're procrastinating and you're trying to get everything perfect. So my point is, just sit there and write the damn thing. And frankly, now it's so much easier than when I started. When I started in 1997, there was no Amazon, there was no Kindle, there was no books on demand, none of this stuff we have today. No. So now the tools are so easy. You can write a book so much easier. I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting that you put out something that's, lousy and crappy and put slipshod work out there.
Sure.
I am saying, let's get out of your head. Yeah. Let's stop procrastinating. Let's focus. Let's cut out the distractions and let's get your book done, or whatever it is your project is.
Which links really well to what I said right at the start. The third pillar: take determined, concerted action. Get it done. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. Absolutely. Yes. So brilliant examples. Tell me, what was the most surprising thing you've learned on your business journey? The most surprising. The
most surprising thing is that it's a double-edged sword, because you have to listen to yourself and you have to get expert advice. So I think the key to that phrase is expert advice.
Yeah.
See, everybody has an opinion. Opinions are like, what? Everybody's got one. Okay. So you got to be very, very careful who you listen to. Okay, so there's I don't know who said this, but somebody said it out there. The only person that can tell me I can't do something is somebody who's tried it and it didn't work. So my point is, for most people out there, there's lots of, your family members, your friends that, oh, you're crazy to start a business now. Don't you know how hard it is? Don't you know it's the economy? And don't you know this? And you look at their life and you go, well, let's see. Are you a 7-figure earner? Then why am I listening to you? Yeah. Sure, maybe we have to be that with family gatherings or whatever, but what I'm suggesting is that you pick your mentors very carefully. Yeah. And here's the way that I do it, and the way that I suggest to my clients to do it. A mentor should be 2 things. Number one, somebody who is where you want to be. Right? You don't want to be following somebody who isn't successful. I mean, that's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
But this is the second point, and this is much more subtle. I argue that it should be somebody who can actually show you how to get there.
Absolutely.
Now, here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of gurus out there that they are really big on showing you their cars, their Rolex, their houses.
The Lamborghini.
The Lamborghinis. And I don't have any problem with it. I mean, hey, we all want fun, pretty. All right? I mean, and those are clearly, evidence of success for most people, right? But my argument is that's great for him.
Absolutely.
Have you helped anybody else? I wrote a blog post about this because I get so angry about it. I couldn't take it anymore. I kept my mouth shut for years. Finally, I can't take this anymore. It's on the Huffington Post. You can read it. And, because you mentioned I'm a Huffington Post blogger.
Yes,
so it's on the Huffington Post.
absolutely.
And the title is, do you care about my money or yours? Because I got sick of seeing all these guys. Look, here's my cars. Here's my Rolex. Again, nothing wrong with that. And some people that attracts. And for that crowd, fine. But have they helped anyone, or is it all about themselves? So all you hear about from their mouth is, well, I've done this and I've done that, and here I've done this and I've done. That's great. Have you helped anyone else? You see what I'm saying? So that's why we go to noahstjohn.com. That's why we have dozens and dozens of stories. I'd rather, if I'm looking at that mentor, going, well, let's see, is it all about him, or has he helped someone to make their own life, to make their success?
I can tell
That's
you.
What we talk about, we want to help 10,000 small business owners double their performance and profits.
Perfect.
10,000 small business owners double their performance and profits. It's not about how much money I make. Yes. Do I make a lot of money? Yes, I make a lot of money. But who cares? It's about your money. It's about the money that our clients have made, over $100 million.
Yeah.
I'd rather see my clients on the aggregate make tons more money than I have, because I'm just one person, one business. It seems pretty obvious that with hundreds or thousands of businesses out there that have bought from me, they should be making a lot more than me, right? Because 1,000 or 10,000 is more than one.
Absolutely.
If I'm the one making all the money, then something's off. So that's my argument about outlook for a minute.
But I think it's a very valid point, because a lot of people, particularly when they first go out looking for help, are sucked in by this, this idea, as I said, the Lamborghini, whatever they're showing you, their sexy, 10-bedroom house or whatever it is that they're flashing in front of you. And the point is, as you quite rightly say, in picking the right coach or mentor, you want people who have a success record, not just for themselves, but for others. And more for me, it's more than that. It's even more than that. And I'm sure it's within what you've said, which is that they have a clear, defined system that you can emulate. It's not just about, I've done it for myself, but can that be translated by the likes of you and I?
That is the entire point, because if it's that person, then it's very possible that it's personality driven.
Precisely.
So that's the way I look at it. There's two ways to succeed. There's personality driven and systems driven.
Yeah.
Personality driven, then you can't replicate it because you don't have their personality. I mean,
exactly.
When I was struggling, before I had my mentor, before in that 10 years I was struggling, I was trying to copy this guy. Well, I'm not that guy. So it didn't work, right? And so, but I'm like, well, he's successful, so I guess I should be like him. I'm like, well, that was a total miserable failure. So the point is, it has to be a system. Means it doesn't matter. You can be a nerd like me. You can be an extrovert. You can be an introvert. You can be a book. You can be, a tap dancer. It doesn't matter. It's a system that it works. You have to plug your stuff into it, right? I mean, it's not cookie cutter, but it is a framework that works no matter who you are. Completely
agree. So one question I ask everyone, and it's really, really important, because irrespective of whether you're 6, 7, 8, just starting or en route, one of the biggest problems people have is dealing with rejections. How do you personally deal with no? How do you do
cry a lot. I go on with this. They rejected me. No, that's not good. I do that in 2 minutes, but no. All right, here's how I look at it. There's good friends of mine, Richard and Andrea Waltz. They wrote a great book called Go for No. And what they basically say is, listen, the more rejection you get, the more acceptance you're going to get. Absolutely. So that fear of rejection is literally one of the things that can be keeping you stuck. And I've seen that in my own life and in certainly my clients' lives. And so when you embrace rejection, and the point is, even that is head trash. All right. So how we look at rejection, that is your head trash. Right. So their argument is, listen, no, you are absolutely, when you are growing your business, when you're trying to do something big or great, it is 100% certain you're going to be rejected along the way. Everyone has. What makes you think you're going to be any different, right? Yep. It is impossible not to be rejected. And so the point is, the more you embrace that and realize what rejection is and isn't, then you just go on to the next thing and you basically just say, hey, that's part of it, And so there's great example. I was recently interviewed on the Jenny McCarthy show. Jenny McCarthy is a very, well-known actress and public figure. And I wrote to her producer, I'd say probably 3-4 times. I didn't hear anything back. And I was like, well, I know that I'm really good. And I know I got this thing that's really awesome that she will love and her audience is going to love. And so I just kept trying. I didn't send the same thing. I kept changing it a little bit. And then all of a sudden one day I sent an email. About an hour later, I got an email from the producer. Love this. When can we have you on the show? Boom. And I was just on the Jenny McCarthy show, and now they want to have me back on. And Jenny loved me. She said on the air, she said, Noah, this is magical. So that's her word. She said, Noah, this is magical. So I wrote to the producer, I said, can I use that quote? She goes, yeah, sure. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So if I had accepted that no as forever, then I wouldn't be on the Jenny McCarthy show. I wouldn't have that great quote, and I wouldn't be coming back on. So,
absolutely.
It's important to, as if you are getting rejected, to learn from it. That's, I guess, the biggest lesson is just say, okay, well, if they didn't like this, maybe I could rewrite it. Maybe I can tweak it. And if you are getting constant rejection with not any acceptance, then you certainly may have to look at your approach. But again, you've got to go to people whose advice you can trust, going to that coach, that mentor that we just talked about, not your friends, not your family members, unless they're a 6-7-figure business owner, which most people don't have that. So, you know what I'm saying? So you've got to be careful. I hate to say this, but you really can't listen to your family and friends unless they are successful in their own right, if you want to have good advice from experts who've been there, done that, and are successful.
Well, they'll give you a view, but whether you pin everything on that is, questionable, as you say, because what authority have they to be giving that information other than maybe loving you and thinking about you and all the usual things about family and friends? Sometimes it's not even very lovable advice, is it? Unfortunately.
There's a lot of layers.
No, it's absolutely got layers. Absolutely. So tell me, what would be your number one tip for listeners listening today? So these are people who are growing their business or hoping to grow their business, are hitting some walls sometimes, maybe doing some programs of mine, etc. What would be your tip within what you offer? Your number one tip.
I would really, the number one tip I would say is find the right mentor. That every quantum leap I've made in my business, I can trace back to someone, a coach, a mentor, a teacher, helping me, just giving me a new perspective, and sometimes a new strategy or set of strategies or tools or tactics that I just wasn't aware of. And there is so much information out there. No one can know everything. We can't, it's just impossible at this point. So, just look at what it is you want to do and look to people who, number one, have done it for themselves, yes, but also, I argue more importantly, have helped other people do the same thing, whether it's start your business, grow your business, get your book published, start your podcast, get your online programs launched, write your book, any of those things. Look to people who've helped people. And I would say that is what's going to enable you to get there a lot faster and easier than trying to figure it out on your own.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Well, now we are heading towards the end of our interview. I have some wonderful takeaways that I want to, first of all, just capture for the audience, because there's some real nuggets in there in terms of what you've said, and links so well, as I said, so aligned to what we talk about quite regularly. The first is, and a lot of these are linked, but the first thing I picked up was the very stark difference between 10 years without a blueprint of struggling and no guidance, no blueprint, and worst of all, a 40,000 loss facing you. That is a phenomenal amount of money, that you have to pay off. And then taking the advice and within a very short period of time, making $11,000. That is just phenomenal, and shows the power of having somebody there to all the things that you've been talking about. And I think the other thing that struck me was very much about information overload. Again, something that I'm very keen that people address, because, as I said, as you mentioned as well, the shiny object syndrome. It's our keenness to learn, and it's also the persuasive nature of some of those people. And the combination of that means is that we gather. But what we do with it is what creates the problem, And I love the point you made about creating a stop doing list, in your words, and what I would determine in mine as prioritizing, delegating, being very clear. This is the determined action. This is what I am going to do. This is what I'm not going to do, in everything that I take on. So absolutely excellent takeaway from that. Again, your point about making sure that when you're getting your expert advice, it's from someone who's been there, done it, but most importantly, can show you how to get there, and not just show you the shiny things that they've achieved in their lives. And the last takeaway for me, really, there were many, but this is the one that sort of comes to mind that I jotted, was really about dealing with rejections, because it's such an important issue for all of us, no matter where we are in our business. Luckily for me, I'm quite successful in what I do, so are you, but we still get rejections, and it's how we deal with them. And I love the concept of reframing it, of using experts to help you to reframe it, more importantly. And the second half, the other side of the coin, if you like, of that, which was about clearing your head thrash around the rejection piece as well. So that you, as I put it, I actually say to people when they are faced with rejections and I can see that they're crumbling at the concept of rejections, as many of us start off with. I often say to them, you want rejections. You actually want rejections, because it's the rejections that grow you, that make you richer in what you are and how you present yourself. So it's again that head thrash issue of just switching that switch that says, actually, maybe, it's a bit of a difficult pill to swallow this minute. This is your, wrote 3 times, didn't get an answer. Well, that won't be very nice when you open your computer every day to see if there's an answer. But it's about having the courage to take that the fourth email option. Well, all I've got to say is that I have absolutely loved talking to you. I know the listeners are going to love listening to this interview, because you've shared so many of your wonderful stories, but also I want to thank you for your wonderful, candid stories that you've shared. And that's brought really a lot of this alive for us today. And I know that our listeners are going to want to explore more about affirmations, about head thrash. And I would urge you to go away and get your copy of Noah's book, Get Rid of Your Head Thrash, and also the book of affirmations. I would suggest both. I liked both of them, and I would suggest you go and get both of them. And the best place to go and learn more about Noah, get your books, which, by the way, are free. He's making them available to you free through noahstjohn.com. Just as his name is, noahstjohn.com. And we will be posting links to both that and his other links on the website. So hopefully you will have all the resources there. But I urge you, as I said, to go away and find out more, clear that head thrash, and start to think in a very, very different way from now on. Noah, thank you so, so much for being such a delightful guest. Thank you again.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.